Hi, Parshat Teruma, year 2021. I heard somebody say that this is the only year where you can say hindsight is truly 2020. So this, wrong side. This is a mizbeach. This is what the Jews burned their offerings, their korbanos, on in the Midbar. Of course, it hasn't been cut up and assembled yet. It's like pointing to a tree and saying, this is a chair. It will be. So, first I'll show you. This is the Art Scroll Chumash, and this is the Mishkan, called the Tabernacle in English, and this is the Mizbeach that we're going to make. The plans for the Mizbeach that I'm using I found on a website called chinuch.org. The title is The Mishkan and Its Kelim According to Rashi. It was created, very extensive, excellent instructions if you want to build one of these, created by Rabbi Benjamin at the Gateshead Jewish Primary School in England. So, this is the main part of the Mizbeach. This is the ramp to bring in Benjamin at the Gateshead Jewish Primary School in England. So, this is the main part of the Mizbeach. This is the ramp to bring things up. And we learned in last week's Parsha, or 2 weeks ago, no steps, so it's an incline. When we build this, as they did in the Mishkan, it's going to have walls, 4 walls, and then they would fill it with dirt from the midbar, and then on top there was a metal grate, and there was a border 2 feet all the way around that the Kohanim could walk on, so when they had to go up to put the offerings, the dead animals, onto the fire, they carry them up the ramp. Maybe they used a wheelbarrow or an agala of some kind, and then put them on the grate to burn. The sides were 10 feet by 10 feet, approximately. The measurement was amos. An amma is a measurement in the Torah, and it's anywhere from 18 to 24 inches. So we'll just say 24 inches, 2 feet, and 5 amos then would be 10 feet. Of course, I'm not going to make something 10 feet and 20 feet. I'm going to make something 10 inches and 20 inches, and put it all together, and then we'll show you in stages how we assemble it. See you in a second. So now we're getting to the sides of the straight up part of the Mizbeach, not the ramp. And so we have 4 sides, and 2 of the pieces are thinner than the other 2 pieces, because if this is 5 amos, and you got this in between, then from this piece on the bottom you have to take away the width of these 2 pieces. So instead of 5 inches, I've got 4¼ inches. And then we'll put these 4 together and continue. That's it. Ready? And action. So I got the 4 sides together. I put a bottom on. That's not really part of it. There was no bottom. I just put it there for stability. It's not as pretty as the one I made out of wood once. It's kind of sticking out here and there, but that's foam board for you. So on the top, there was a walkway for the Kohanim to walk around and put the meat on the Mizbeach, and there was a grill there, and there was a nace involved here that the wood didn't burn and the grill didn't melt over time. Okay, so we'll put that in there. And then our next step will be to do the ramp, and there was a border all the way around, and I'll explain that border. So that'll be on the next one. Cut and take 4. So I got the four sides, and I put them together with glue and tape. And then I put the grill on the top with the rampart that the Kohanim can walk around. Daniel, Jaden, you paying attention here? This is you. And then they would have a fire underneath. They fill this whole thing with dirt. Then they build a fire underneath and put the sacrifice animals on here to burn. And then we're also going to need, as you can see in this book called The Mishkan from Art Scroll, that there's a ramp. This thing is 10, 20, 24 feet high. It's hot. You can't just jump up there with a heavy piece of meat. So we will be putting the ramp together. And then there are a few more things to be done. There's a base underneath, and then in the middle there's a band of decoration and a band of metal grill, and they have an important function. They're not just decorative. So we'll discuss them next time or two. And now, cut. Take 6. Becca says it's 5. I don't know. So, we have now put together the 4 sides and the grill and the base. Oh, I cheated. There's no real base. And the ramp. And so these two go together like this. And then when they would move in the midbar, Shem would say, okay, enough time here, let's go there. So they would take all these things apart. I think this came in sections because it's way too long. And these pieces each came apart, and then they'd reassemble it, fill it with dirt, put it in the fire, start burning animals. Now, what's left to do? You can see over here that there was a border here and a border here, and this is actually something that serves a purpose. That the border is 5 amos from the bottom, and when they took the blood from the animals, they were supposed to sprinkle the blood on the Mizbeach, and it was supposed to be sprinkled on the lower half of the Mizbeach. So they'd stand there with this bowl of blood and a spoon, and throw the blood, and it had to be in the bottom half. So the border showed them where, and a border here, and this is actually something that serves a purpose. That the border is 5 amos from the bottom, and when they took the blood from the animals, they were supposed to sprinkle the blood on the Mizbeach, and it was supposed to be sprinkled on the lower half of the Mizbeach. So they'd stand there with this bowl of blood and a spoon, and throw the blood, and it had to be in the bottom half. So the border showed them where the second half, the upper 5 amos, started. So they had to throw the blood down there. And then lastly, there are the poles for carrying, and those were set in there permanently. So we're going to need 4 rings, and then we're going to need the poles. And last of all is that the Mizbeach itself was covered with copper, and the ramp was made out of wood. Well, they're both made out of wood, but this was just, I think, not covered with copper. So we're going to have to paint this brown and paint this copper color, and then we can start killing animals. And it's our final action. We've got all the pieces together. Let's assemble it. Here's the Mizbeach, and here's the border down below and the decorative border above. And put that together. And there are poles that have to be inserted. And here they are. And then lastly, we have the fire. Don't play with fire, children. So there's the Mizbeach. And a funny story about the Mizbeach in the Beit HaMikdash, there was a Kohen Gadol who was not a friend of the rabbis. He was what they call a Saduki, and a heretic. And he got up on the Mizbeach and did something that the Jews didn't like, so they started pelting him with their esrogim, because it was a Sukkot holiday, and they're all standing around in the courtyard of the Holy Temple and throwing their esrogim at him. And they broke off one of the corners of the Mizbeach. And so if you read in Gemara Sukkot, it'll tell you how they took care of that and what the consequence was. So that's our Mizbeach for this week's Parsha, Parshat Teruma. And thank you for listening.